All right, good morning. Thanks for coming out here so early in the morning to come hear me talk. I appreciate it. Just a brief introduction. My name is Dave Kennedy. I'm a founder and principal security consultant at a company called TrustedSec, which I started about a year ago. Prior to that, I worked for the National Security Agency. So I use Gmail and Facebook, so I think I'm a bad person all around. But I'm a business guy, penetration tester, exploit researcher. I created the Social-Engineer Toolkit and founder of Defcon, and also wrote the book, Metasploit, the Penetration Tester's Guide. So really when I came up with this talk, I looked at how we break into organizations, and I looked at different ways that we break into companies, and usually a lot of those are coded into the Social-Engineer Toolkit. But what I wanted to do is just give you some scenarios that work for me, things that bypass a lot of different types of technology out there that allowed us to gain access to an organization and pretty much rip through any technology you want to. And I'm going to show you a new technique as well that I'll be releasing at Defcon this year, where we basically circumvent all next-gen firewalls. So I'll show you that as well. But looking at this, and the different types of attacks that we have out there, it's never been easier for us to break into an organization. I came up through penetration testing probably about 10 years ago, and the techniques that I've used haven't changed. The techniques I've used haven't morphed in any way, shape, or form. It's just they've gotten easier and better. And so when we look at certain attacks, I'm going to go through some scenarios to make you and help you frame your mind in a way that allows you to think a little bit differently, that allows you to create a fantasy or create something that seems legitimate in nature so that in the end of the day, an organization believes it and you get your attack. So the best way to show and represent that is to show you different types of penetration tests that have worked for me, give you guys the knowledge to be able to do it on yourself and be able to test it on yourself. So scenario one is the healthcare company. Now, I don't know if it's any different here in France, but in the United States, healthcare companies are literally like 10 years behind everybody else when it comes to security. And we have this thing called HIPAA, which is the Healthcare Information Portability Accountability Act or something like that. And it's kind of the governing body around security. So what I wanted to do first was I wanted to attack this organization. Now, when I go and attack a company, I look at them from an open source intelligence standpoint. So I sit there and I look around at what type of information is available to me. And one of my favorite tools that I like using is one of my good buddies, Marcus Carey, wrote a tool called Threat Agent, which will go on and automatically start mapping out the company's infrastructure, email addresses. It'll use the harvester, a lot of other things to get a lot of good information out there. Now, when I start looking about what types of things I'm going to go after, I need to create a scenario in my head, especially if I'm going through spear phishing or targeted attacks. And so when I start looking for this, I think about what I would fall for and what I would believe. And sometimes I'll even bounce these ideas off my wife to see if she'll even believe them, just to see if I'm not being biased here. So the scenario is in the United States, no one really knows HIPAA. They know the name, but they don't really know what it means. And so I started looking at the websites and what websites they had externally exposed, and there was a third-party healthcare benefits site that they used for their actual benefits packages. And so I started looking at this and what I could do with it, and started to think about different attacks. So the first example I came up with was this, and this is just a targeted attack that I looked at. Now, there's a lot of cool things that you can do just by looking at an organization. Like, for example, if you contact their careers forums, or you contact the Contact Us and you're an interested person, and you get an email back, that one email tells us a lot about the company. One, how they format the email and how they format their headers, titles, positions, phone numbers, everything. So it's very beneficial for us. Now, in this one, there's a couple of indicators that I use. Now, when you're looking at social engineering and spear phishing, what do we commonly see? Like FedEx packages or mail shipments or bank account stuff, right? However, if you can target an individual in a way that's personal, but still within the confines of work and creates a sense of urgency, you have a very high success rate and probability of actually attacking that person and gaining access to him. So in this case, if you look at this, I created this fantasy, right? And basically it was, if you didn't go through and do health benefits, or if you didn't go through and sign up on this new healthcare privacy, you're not going to receive medical benefits for 2014. So real simple, but look at some of the key emotional triggers here. If the policy is not verified, you will not receive health benefits for 2013, so no benefits coverage. We use what we're taught. I use things against people that we're taught. We're taught as employees to hover over the thing and look and see, make sure it's a legitimate site. So just register the same site with dash benefits on it or dash whatever on it. Make it something similar in nature and believable, and just you own the domain so you can do whatever you want to. So buy a $20 certificate, SSL cert. Makes it look secure. You can tell them whatever you want to in these things. You can be like, hey, if you get a warning that says this is malware, just hit cancel. It's okay. You can put those things in these emails and it still works. So if you look at it, this process will only take 10 minutes. So I create a sense of urgency that you're not going to receive medical benefits and you're not going to have benefits for your family. So in your head, you're already chemically saying, hey, I'm going to click this pretty much. And then from a 2-minute perspective, you say, it's only going to take 2 minutes out of my time, so I'm going to go and do it. Pretty simple. So in order to make it believable, when we went to the website, we made custom links, we made it look real believable in every way, registered the domains that's similar, and found that company, the third-party healthcare company that we're going to use to do the attack. Now, when I go and I do my specific targeted attack, I only target sales and engineers typically, people that aren't necessarily IT folks. And I only target a few folks, like maybe like 10, 15 tops, because I don't want to get busted when I'm doing these different types of attacks. I'm going to show you building this right from scratch. And so total count, all in all, I targeted 13 people, emails crafted, and headers, logos, everything. So when I launched the attack, what I want to show you is I'm going to show you an example of the Social-Engineer Toolkit in the most recent version that just released yesterday. The most recent version is actually completely redesigned as far as the Powershell attack goes, and I'll get into that in a second. But when I'm going in and I'm targeting an organization, what are things that we're taught not to do when it comes to getting an email? Anybody know? You guys speak in English too, because I don't speak French. Anybody know things that we're taught to do? Right? Let's just think of a couple. Open up a zip file, right? Open up a PDF, open up a document. Those are all completely useless. Like, I don't think anybody uses them anymore to actually target individuals. Or what about exploits, for example? When we go and we do our phishes, do we actually run exploits? Right? We're taught that, hey, 0 days are probably going to hit us. We don't need any of that. We got an awesome thing called Java. It's amazing. With Java, we have full access to anything we want to. And we don't have to target and we don't have to exploit anything because it's platform independent, so we can target Mac, we can target Linux, we can target Windows. And at the end of the day, we don't have to worry about the sandbox because we're in an applet environment and we're triggering controls that don't trigger that. So when we look at this, we can deploy a fully believable site that someone's going to click on, that someone's going to accept, and then it's going to compromise their computer. Now, what's cool about this attack is it doesn't write to disk. So it's not going to sit there, it's not going to drop a PE file, a backdoor into a system. It's going to use PowerShell injection techniques for just sending shellcode straight into memory and then executing without ever touching disk. Now, what's even better about that is so we can circumvent antivirus, right, which is really just ridiculous today, okay? It's easy. The second thing we can do is bypass whitelisting and blacklisting because PowerShell has to be enabled on Windows in order for it to function properly. Help menus, updates, things like that, scripting. So we have the ability to basically attack a bunch of different types of technologies all at once and get access to the environments. So I'm going to show you the attack real quick here. All right, let me just use this. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you setting up the Social-Engineer Toolkit. Now, if you're not familiar with SET, it's a tool I started developing about 4 years ago. And it's really aimed at targeting and using specially crafted attacks against people via social engineering, as well as other direct attacks through Fast Track. But in this example, what we're going to do is we're going to go out to the internet, we're going to clone a website, we're going to bring it back, we're going to rewrite it with a whole bunch of stuff. It's going to get past everything we want it to, and then it's going to compromise the machines that we want. Now, a couple of things. It's funny. When I wrote this tool, all of the antivirus companies would always come to my website every time I would do a new release, and they'd write signatures every single time, right, from all my PE files that I used. So what I did is I created basically it dynamically creates all the PE files every single time, and it encapsulates it in an AES-256, basically AES-256 bubble with a dynamic cipher key every single time. So it's completely different. It's encrypted from end to end every single time. There's nothing that touches this that's not encrypted. Now, they finally gave up on that, and they started moving to my Java applet. So with this most recent release, something that I released a couple weeks ago, the Java applet actually gets updated every 2 hours, and it's completely randomized, string encryption, everything. So the Java applet itself is completely different every 2 hours. Now, what's funny about that is a few of the antivirus companies started, basically working on signatures, and they lasted about, I think, like one of the ones, they did it 4 times and then gave up. Another one, stopped after 7, and another one stopped after about 19. One of them was kind of persistent, but they all gave up. So the Java applet, all the payloads, everything gets around anything that you want it to right now. So I'm going to go to the Social-Engineer Toolkit. I'm going to go to the website attack vectors. And I'm going to go to the Java applet attack. I'm going to clone a site. Oops, hang on. I wrote the thing and I forgot that menu.
Minutes, then we'll have the questions. Is that okay?
5 minutes?
Is that okay?
Sure.
10?
Whatever, man. I'll skip all my presentation. So what happens here is we do the attack. It basically automatically goes and it grabs shellcode. It dynamically patches it so that it matches your IP address and everything else. It automatically does everything for you. It wraps it in a 256 AES bubble, and then it's ready to go, okay? So now if I go to this website, and it went to sleep on me. So if I go to this website real quick here, and my IP is 164. It's going to take a second to load because the internet's a little slow, but it looks like, a website. Now, would anybody click that? All you guys in the audience are like, absolutely not, but you would. This one's interesting because it's a signed Java applet with a legitimate certificate, which for $150 it costs you to get one of these. All right, that's it. It's about all you need to get one of these code signing certs. Now, as soon as I hit run, you notice here it redirects back to the legitimate site. So I don't know I was at a malicious one in the first place. And over here we get all of our shells. So in this attack vector, you saw just in a few minutes how easy it was, and it circumvents pretty much every technology that we know out there. I only have a few minutes. I want to show you a couple other things really quick. All right, so another attack vector, and this is the last one I'll show, is bypassing next-gen firewalls. Next-gen firewalls are touted as being kind of the savior of everything when it comes to detection, analysis, network analysis, behavioral analysis. And what's nice about the next-gen firewalls is they're basically using the same antiquated technology as antivirus. They're using signatures for their network behavioral analysis side of the house. So this is a technique that I came up with that basically takes shellcode, injects it straight into memory, but wraps it around SSH and then tunnels it over HTTPS. And it's chunked up in a way that's completely polymorphic and changes every single time, so signatures can't be written on it, and allows us to basically exfiltrate all of our data outside of the company using whatever payload we want to. So in this case, I'm going to show you Metasploit, injecting straight into memory. So you notice here, it's waiting for the encrypted tunnel. I'm going to run it. It's going to inject into memory, injects. It's encapsulating SSH over HTTP, and it should go over here. Encrypted tunnel was identified, verified response triggers, and is launching Metasploit. And we got our shell. We have full access to the computer bypassing next-gen firewalls. So, there's a lot more I had for the talk. However, I think I'm out of time when it comes to what I'm doing. But if you're interested in this stuff, the Social-Engineer Toolkit's open source. It's really available for everybody. And there's a lot of different types of attacks that are out there for it. In this specific attack, what ended up happening is we compromised them, but we still didn't have access into the individual systems because none of them running as admin. So we ended up basically spoofing our number, calling them, and saying they were from the help desk, and saying that they'd been compromised and that this whole thing was a phish. Then actually got them to say, okay, no problem, we're going to fix it. I called the help desk from that other person. They log in, and I get Kerberos tokens. So there's a lot of different ways of thinking about it, and a lot of different ways that you can do it. It's just a matter about thinking outside the box and getting creative when you're doing these different types of attacks. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. So I'm not going to go into any of my slides or anything like that, but what I wanted to show you is a couple of things that I thought were important. And so when I talked about that Java applet attack, right, and when it executes, it uses an attack through PowerShell. Now, back at Defcon 18, myself and an individual named Josh Kelly, we presented on basically how to circumvent what are called execution restriction policies. So even if in its most restrictive form, a PowerShell, you can still basically access anything that you want to and still inject shellcode into memory. We pretty much use full-fledged applications, dump the SAM database through PowerShell, not needing to worry about it. And so the applet actually incorporates that into the attack itself. And so what I wanted to show you is I released a tool just the other day. It was called Magic Unicorn. And just to give you an example, what this does is it automatically takes this attack that automatically generates shellcode for you through Metasploit, and then it places it into the PowerShell attack. It then casts it Unicode, base64 encodes it, and then gives you the output that you need in order to run it. And I just wanted to show you an example here really quick. So just as an example, I'm going to type interpreter shell. And I'm going to paste my IP and what port I want to go on. And what this is going to do is going to export two files. One is the PowerShell code. Second is going to be the RC file that we need. Now, I'm just going to show you an example of basically pasting it into an operating system, but get a little bit more creative how we'd actually deploy this. When I'm doing penetration tests, a lot of times I'll find, let's just say SQL injection in MS SQL. I'll escalate my privileges to SA, and then from there I have access to XP command shell. I can actually use just the copy and paste through the XP command shell stored procedure to get access. So just examples of getting access through PowerShell. So you see here, this is the command we're actually going to run on the operating system. And this works on Windows Vista, Windows 7, and Windows 8. Now this new version incorporates a new attack, in a sense. So the problem that I had before in PowerShell was whether or not it's a 64-bit processor or 32-bit. And so what you'd have to do traditionally in the old code is you'd have to inject both of them, all right, and hope that one of them worked, right? So if you're on a 32-bit platform and it executed 64, it would actually crash and you wouldn't see it, right? But very inefficient. The new technique that was just incorporated yesterday in SET and also in this tool, what it does is it automatically downgrades the process itself to a 32-bit process and allows you to execute PowerShell commands natively in a 64-bit processor as well. So basically, it does smart detection, allows you to inject shellcode straight into memory and not have to worry about it. And why that's important is we can now basically do an attack through one command line and not have to do multiple. So what I want to show you is this. So I need to launch Metasploit real quick. And so this is going to launch Metasploit. This is all output from the tool itself. It automatically generates everything for you. And again, we're not touching disk in any way, shape, or form, right? We're just going to be pasting this into the command prompt here. So I'm going to paste it. That's the command right there. Hit enter. And over here, we'll have a shell in a second. It's a little slow. There it is. So we're able to get our shell through PowerShell injection without touching disk, injecting into memory, targeting a 64-bit operating system with downgrading to a 32-bit process, and then we get our shell here in a second. It's really slow. It'll go. Now, another thing I wanted to show as part of this, and something that I committed recently to Metasploit, and it's been in Metasploit for a while, but I originally wrote the module for Windows Vista and Windows 7, but I modified it a bit so it works on Windows 8 now, is bypassing user access control. So Windows UAC. UAC is basically a way to restrict a user and confine them into an individual silo, right? So that they can't elevate themselves to administrative level rights. Well, the new version that was committed, it's a post-exploitation module through for Metasploit. It actually targets Windows 8 now and successfully works on Windows 8 fully patched. So you can escalate your privileges from a normal user confined in a Windows 8 environment all the way up to administrator circumventing UAC. And I'll show you a quick demo of it. I think think one of my processes hung when I closed the window down on my machine. That's why it's so slow. Let me just kill this real quick. There we go. All right, so what I'm going to do again is I'm just going to do a real fast thing with set again, just to show you. Now, don't worry, I'm going to scroll through a bunch of stuff. All right, hang on. It's 164. So I'm just going to use a default Gmail template because I don't have my internet up. It's going to do all its stuff, inject, and all that good stuff. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to browse to it just to show you, getting the shells, and then I'm going to escalate myself to administrator through bypassing UAC with the new Windows 8 module. So I go to this Gmail website, and again, you should look familiar. It's the same one I did before. You hit run. We get our shells, just like before. Now, to show you a little example of UAC, what happens when I type in get system in Meterpreter? Anybody know? You get operation failed to escalate, access is denied. So UAC is doing its job and it's stopping us from elevating ourselves. Now, the flaw with UAC and the problem why it can't be fixed so easy is it's actually a design flaw in how Windows was actually designed and how UAC was designed. So when I log into my machine, there's certain processes that are spawned under the context of my user account. Let's just say explored.exe. Explored.exe is running as my username Dave. Now the problem is that process itself never prompts for UAC rights, right? You don't see explored. You don't see the boop. UAC is triggering on explored.exe. And the reason being is it's whitelisted with what we call a trusted publisher certificate, and from there it goes through and it tries to elevate, or it whitelists it basically from being UAC safe. So basically, explored.exe can call anything with administrative level rights without having to worry about it. So what we can do technically is inject into explored.exe without triggering any type of admin rights whatsoever, call a DLL and have it launch our second payload, which would be Meterpreter, which allows us to then elevate our permission to get around UAC under a UAC-safe process. So let me just show you. It's going to run. And then we'll get a second command shell open. See session open 6? That's our UAC-safe spawn shell. It's under the explore.exe context now, and we should be UAC-safe. Boom. Windows 8. UAC gone. So that was pretty much it. Just come up and show you a couple more cool things, a couple new tricks. If you're not familiar with them, the new Windows 8 compatibility was released, I think, like 2 weeks ago that I put in there. Also, the new version of the Social-Engineer Toolkit was released yesterday that incorporates the new downgrade attacks through Powershell. All of it's getting around pretty much anything out there. It's getting around heuristics, behavioral. It's getting around proxy settings. It's getting around, antivirus. It's getting around them all right now. So very successful way of getting around an organization's defenses all through the toolkit. All right? Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate it.